you've done it again. Different person, same story, different face, same patterns, different relationship, same pain. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a terrifying thought starts to form. What if the common denominator is me? Here's the thing, that thought is closer to the truth than you might want to admit, but not in the way you think. You're not broken. You're not cursed. You are not unlovable. You're simply running an old program. And today, we're going to decode exactly what that program is and how to rewrite it. Welcome to MindFrame Lab, where we decode human behavior. The pattern of attracting toxic people is one of the most painful and confusing experiences a person can have. You try to choose better. You promise yourself it will be different, and then somehow it isn't. This is not bad luck. This is not a coincidence. There is a very specific psychological mechanism at work, and once you understand it, you will never see your relationships the same way again. To understand why you attract toxic people, we need to go back to the beginning. Not the beginning of your last relationship, the beginning of you. Attachment theory, developed by psychologist John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, shows that the way we bond with our early caregivers creates a template, a blueprint for how relationships feel, how love looks, and what we unconsciously expect from the people closest to us. If you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, inconsistent, or paired with criticism, your nervous system learned something powerful. This is what closeness feels like, not because it's healthy, not because it's what you want, but because it's familiar. And the brain is wired to seek the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. This is why someone who grew up with an emotionally unavailable parent often finds themselves drawn to emotionally unavailable partners. Not consciously, not deliberately, but there is a comfort in the familiar pattern, even when that pattern hurts. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to recreate early emotional experiences, often in an attempt to finally resolve them. Here's something that surprises most people. You probably sensed the red flags early on. There was a moment, maybe in the first few weeks, where something felt off. A comment that stung a little too much. A reaction that seemed disproportionate. A subtle feeling that you couldn't quite name, and you ignored it, or explained it away, or told yourself you were overreacting. Why? Because for many people, the early warning signs of a toxic relationship don't feel like danger. They feel like intensity. They feel like passion. They feel like finally being seen, even if what's being seen is being used. The nervous system of someone with an anxious attachment style, for example, actually experiences the uncertainty and emotional volatility of a toxic person as excitement. The highs feel higher, the connection feels deeper, the chemistry feels undeniable. What they're actually feeling is the familiar activation of their childhood attachment system. The same neurological pattern that was wired in when love came with unpredictability. This is not weakness, this is neuroscience, but understanding it is what allows you to change it. So how do you actually break the cycle? The first step is to expand your window of what feels normal. If your nervous system has been calibrated to associate love with anxiety, consistency will feel boring, kindness will feel suspicious, stability will feel suffocating. This is not a sign that the healthy person is wrong for you. It's a sign that your baseline needs recalibration. The practical exercise is this. When you meet someone new, Pay attention not just to how exciting they feel, but to how safe they feel. Can you be yourself around them? Do they follow through on what they say? Do you feel more anxious or more at ease after spending time with them? The second step is to work on your self-worth independently of relationships. Toxic people are drawn to people who need them. When your sense of value comes from being needed, from fixing others, from being chosen by someone difficult, you become a target. Building a stable internal sense of worth through therapy, through self-awareness, through the practice of treating yourself the way you want to be treated, changes the dynamic entirely. The third step is to learn to tolerate the discomfort of ending things early. Most people stay too long in toxic situations because leaving feels worse than staying. But every time you tolerate behavior that crosses your boundaries, you send a message to your own nervous system. I am not worth protecting. Learning to exit early, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're not sure, is one of the most powerful things you can do for your future relationships. Attracting toxic people is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to understand why it happens and to do something about it. The pattern you learned in childhood made sense then. It helped you survive. But you're not a child anymore, and you get to decide what your relationships look like from here. That decision starts with awareness, and awareness starts with exactly what you're doing right now. If this video gave you something to think about, subscribe to MindFrame Lab. We decode human behavior every week. See you in the next one.